Please. Okay, next, Ms. Butler, would you like to respond to this
I would
issue?
just like to say that these are the kinds of problems that could be solved with some kind of communication between the community and the prosecutor's office. And when I said that I would set up an accountability group or a group of citizens that were overlooking what's going on in the office, it wasn't grand jury kind of stuff. It was to make sure that when a community person has a concern, that it is brought to the attention of the people in that office who can do something about it. You guys, it's your law firm. You should have everything to say about how it operates.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Next question. Thank you.
Ms. Butler, I understand that you intend to reduce the felony 5 possession of crack pipes to misdemeanor. And I wonder, first, why you would do that, and second, are there any other laws that you intend to decriminalize?
I didn't say that I was going to reduce them to misdemeanors. I think that lower level felonies that have no victims and that have no witnesses ought to be, and especially crack pipe cases, they ought to be looked at for in another way, because it's costing a fortune to prosecute those as felonies. It really is. And it's also placing people in a position of never being able to be a contributing member of society. So I am going to be very tough on criminals. People who create problems for other people, people who assault, the bad guys are going to go under my watch. But I just think that, and all of our energy is going to be spent on the bad guys, not a whole lot on the crack pipe cases.
Mr.
They
Mason.
hurt no one.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Mr. Mason.
I do not pick and choose what laws I'm going to follow. Our police officers do a very good job working the cases they have. The state legislature have created laws. The House Supreme Court on the crack case has actually upheld that. That's a lawful law. The police department brings these cases to our offices. We then make sure they meet the elements of the crime, and then we present it to a grand jury and we prosecute them. We don't get to decide what laws we're going to follow.
Okay. Thank you very much for your questions, and Ms. Butler, Mr. Mason, thank you very much for your answers. It's now come to near the end of the program where I have an opportunity to ask a final question to each of the candidates. Each will have 3 minutes to respond to my question. The candidates will answer these 2 questions in the reverse order from the opening, so that means Mr. Mason will go first. Mr. Mason, short question. Do you believe the death penalty is a deterrent to future crime? And if so, what empirical evidence, that is, facts from scientific or sociological studies, do you have to support your position?
Well, I do. I believe in the death penalty. I think it's the ultimate sanction for some of the heinous things that happen in this county. I think we should enforce it. I think we should apply it on appropriate cases. And in my office, when a case comes in that has the elements of the crime that indicate a death penalty is warranted, we apply it. We have a committee that we have review the case when it's getting ready for trial to determine whether or not we should move off the death penalty. I do believe it's a deterrent. I think that when the bad guys know that if they shoot that person under that set of facts when they're robbing, whatever, because they know the law just as well as any lawyer in this county. When the bad guys are out there committing these crimes and they're making decisions on whether they're going to shoot that person or not, they think about it. And I've heard them say that to some of the police officers who investigate. They know that if they do that, they get the death penalty. If they don't do that and they just run off and leave the person as they found them, they don't get the death penalty. They're aware of that. And so it is a deterrent in a practical sense.
Thank you. Ms. Butler, the question for you I have goes back to something that you said in your opening comments. You characterized the criminal justice system in Cuyahoga County as being dysfunctional, and you commented briefly about the Justice Reform Initiative. And just to recap, Mr. Mason said that several years ago a study was commissioned, a study conducted by Justice Management Institute. That report, the JMI report, recommended many significant changes to make the system in Cuyahoga County more efficient and more effective. Specifically, there were 36 reforms. The question I have is, have you had an opportunity to read the report? What do you think about the recommendations, and what do you think about the leadership role that Mr. Mason has played to implement those reforms?
Thank you, Dean Mearns. First of all, I have read the report. I've read it more than once, as a matter of fact, and I think I may have referred to some problems I have that report, because the report has simply not been followed by this office. The dysfunction that I'm referring to was in an editorial that was written by the Plain Dealer, dated February 25th, 2007. So I'm not the only one who thinks that it's dysfunctional. Now, as far as that report is concerned, the grand jury is still complaining, and that was one of the reforms that this group suggested was that the grand jury be unclogged, that they don't continue to get all the 4th and 5th degree felony cases on their laps, because they don't have time then to spend on the major cases. They don't have time to really sit and analyze the cases that are serious, that are more serious. And so, if that has not been followed, we're still waiting for the grand jury to be unclogged. So, I like the report, I like the recommendation, but it's not happening. They recommended open discovery. They recommended that it be followed on a regular and consistent basis according to certain guidelines that are established. That has also not been followed. So I am concerned that while this great report is sitting out there, it's been totally ignored, or at least in part with respect to those two areas, by this prosecutor's office, and that is part of the reason why I am running for prosecutor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Butler. Thank you, Mr. Mason. I believe that concludes the program. Mr. Foster, any announcements?
Just to close. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we've been listening to a debate between Annette Butler and William Mason, candidates for Cuyahoga County Prosecutor. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, Dean Mearns. And thank you, audience. This forum is now adjourned.